With Star Citizen 3.23 we are getting some new keybinds, and let's face it, I am not going to remember all of the stuff I have bind, especially into my Virpil Control Panels. So this video will be just kind of short and fun little project. Okay, so little did I know that this project would end up spiraling completely out of control. More about this thing a bit later. I'm going to design and create my own nice looking labels and some keycaps for my Virpil Control Panels. First thing I had to do was basically pry one cap off for measurement. Good thing they're designed for this. And then just firing up Fusion 360 and starting to create some really simple designs. I started with the margin of 0.1 mm, which I later realized was a mistake. Also, if you don't have any actual engraver available, you could just raise or lower the text and try to paint it or around it, just being really careful. And then loading white PLA into my 3D printer, send the print from slicer to printer and wait for my 3D printer to poop. Then it was good to go. I could print this top side up and use something like ironing, but I actually like the texture of my textured printer's bed. It's just perfect for this sort of stuff. And also this thing is really fast, so prototyping small things doesn't take too long. And while I was prying far too tight button off from my key, I printed another one with 0.2 mm margins. This was much better and clearly let enough light to pass through. I also made another version with chamfer since I figured it would look nicer. For the painting, I wanted to have some plate that I could rotate around, so I printed one. After quick painting outside, it was time for engraving. I figured out I could just attach this trick into its right place and could just engrave these one button at a time but fast. But my old Netmaster 2 really isn't made for accuracy, especially with its manual homing. After multiple failures, I still decided to try this thing out and learn a few things. 1. I liked the non-chamfer version better, and it looked really nice when I let light through from the sides. This was a good thing since it faster paint just the top. So after printing a bunch of keycaps, I figured out I could paint these easily with another small trick. But I printed it 2 mm low and it was a bit too tight. But the second one ended up being much better. So I just went ahead with painting the caps, and surprisingly enough my trick actually worked and I got 10 painted in one go. Naturally some paint is bleeding into the sides, but this isn't something I will notice when playing in darkroom. But then there was the issue with engraving the keycaps, and I was already quite wary with fighting with my old laser engraver. It has always been like that. So I ended up picking a second-hand Creality Falcon 10W engraver for a nice price. It even included accessories and an air assist, and basically it had been used for something like 3 times before. First I wanted to mount it in place, so I printed these corner pieces and measured one corner to be a reference corner, so it would be completely straight. So I used this metalworking square. And after attaching the corners so I could also lift the laser off, I first engraved the reference grid into its place. And of course I had to do this one. It actually cuts through 4 mm plywood, though it requires 2 passes and a slow speed. With more passes I think I could do even 8 mm plywood. But it's not really a laser cutter and those things would have been much more expensive. Also, since it was close to Mother's Day, I made these garden signs for my mother-in-law. And while I was at it, I decided to fix the broken window in front of my basement work desk. The idea was actually to make a pass-through so I could use the fan to suck out the fumes from soldering or engraving. And final time to get back to engraving the keycaps. The way I work here is that I have a laser connected with USB to my laptop and I use Lightburn software to control the laser. Much less of an hassle than moving stuff around with the memory card. And here you see why I made sure one corner was completely square. I can use a square here to position smaller items into the grid easily. And after making sure the focus was spot on, time for the first keycap, which ended up in failure. After many attempts I realized that the laser unit itself can move a bit when moving it up and down, so this grid would be quite useless for sub-millimeter accuracy. But on the other hand, The frame itself was still perfectly square, so I could use the sides to make sure the piece was also squared. And yeah, despite being careful, you'll end up with some of these markings in your base. So what I end up doing is that I engrave the corner into a small sacrificial sheet that I can use as a reference. Basically anything would work here, even a small piece of cardboard. Just have to make this 30-second thing before starting to work with small pieces. And things were finally working and accuracy was, well, good enough. So I made few stupid mistakes like forgetting to move the laser upwards after adding the sheet. And apparently the air assist can blow a small piece off. But 5th time's the charm, I guess. So now I just placed the keycap in the right place, changed the text in light burn and worked through the caps. And while I didn't have my fume extraction working just yet, I still made sure to use a fan to blow the fumes away from me and naturally had all the windows and doors open. I also made these small labels to be used in other places. Nothing special, just helping me to remember my bindings. After everything was done, it was time to put the keycaps in place. The keycaps themselves were easy, just push in. For the labels, I decided to use some blue tack for now. It could be enough, and if not, then something like double-sided tape or hot glue. And the moment of truth. Just need to make sure that the LED brightness is at max. Well, that was an interesting project, and someone might say that the price of a single cap was quite high, but I am going to need a good laser engraver for my future projects too. Since my old Nature Master, it wasn't large enough, even my current panels, so a good laser cutter with more power would be nice, but those things are again much more expensive, so this is kind of a nice compromise. But in any case, if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching and hope to see you next time.